Hello, everyone. Super excited to get a chance to connect today. How is everybody doing? We are just waiting for all of our servers to go ahead and connect. So thank you, everyone, for being patient. Today, we are doing something that I know that you all know that phrase. And that phrase is, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And what's funny to me is that it kind of has always had its own little phrase in that, of like, if mom isn't happy, ain't nobody happy. And the reason I want to talk about this tonight is because I think as women, we can forget the strength and yet the burden that we simultaneously carry by being ourselves, by being in relationships, by having children, that we carry so much of that weight for our group, for our family, for ourselves, for our friends. And so for those of you that are tuning in and this is your first podcast, welcome to the Anna Alexis Podcast. We do this every Tuesday at 5 p.m. And what this group is designed to do is it's really just out there to be there for women to say like, hey, I see you. We're doing this, we're working hard, but it's mostly for women who are lacking kind of that clarity and direction. And they're wanting to know, like, what is my purpose? What am I doing here? What is my calling? And it's here for us to join together so that we can get working on that, to figure out what that is, so we can start living a life full of inner peace, instead of this like inner anxiety that can kind of just swarm around us. And so tonight, the topic is, just like I said, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And I want to just get a chance to like resonate with you. Maybe I'm the only one, but one of the things I realize in my home is I set the tone, the mood all the time. And at times it can be really exhausting. When Jeff and I first got together and I was being a mom full time while we were dating, after we had moved in together, I was so tired and I couldn't really figure out why in the beginning, but it was like, I'm showing up with this best version of myself instead of just like coasting and existing. And it is like poking small holes into my very being, and they're bleeding out, because we're giving to this little kid, and I had never done anything like that before. And so it was just, I can't even describe it. I was so used. I was living alone before I met Jeff and Cam, before we had all lived together. And I was just like, why am I so tired? And now fast forward almost 7 years, I realize if I'm not feeling it, ain't nobody having a good day. And I don't want it to be that way, but it just is. And so I don't know if episode 9 is going to be like the Terrible Wives podcast or what, but it is just so funny to me because maybe I'm alone in this. Maybe I'm not. But I've had conversations with my spouse where I've said, I don't get it. You never plan anything. But then simultaneously, if he were to say, hey, Thursday night, you're busy, I'd go, I am not. I am free doing whatever it is I want, and so, but there's these parallels of like, I want you to be like this. Oh, but then don't, because I like to control that. The other one, and this doesn't happen in our household, but I felt it a lot as a kid, is we would help my mom do something and then she would just redo it. Like I would be so happy to like, oh, I folded all the towels for her. And then she just refold them like the way that she wanted them. And so for your kids, if you maybe do that, there's this realm of defeat that's now 30 years later that I'm like, God, that really did hurt my feelings. I was doing my best. And so to really kind of take a look at everything to say like, hey, maybe it isn't right. Yes, you can probably do it faster. But what you really have to ask yourself is, do you want to be the fastest towel folderer ever? Or do you want some help? And what we're looking at tonight, and what I wanted to talk about and kind of go over in this, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, is, well, one, this will be a whole new podcast. But if it's like, my kids and my spouse don't make me happy, well, that's not their job. And if you created little creatures that run around your house and make a mess and give you hugs and scream and do all the things, and they're supposed to make you happy, this is going to be a long rest of your life. That's not how that works. And so what I want to do tonight is I want to be able to just sit down with everyone and sit down with my girls in where they're at and just take a breath and just identifying 4 things that we can do to just slow down. Because what I can find, and I found this very recently, is the Olympics are going on. My husband, he loves the Olympics. He loves sports. He loves competing. He loves movement. I don't love them in that way for all of those things. But what I am finding is he's hanging out with our baby on the couch. I'm getting all amped up and stressed because I'm still working and I'm thinking about all the things we got to do inside the house, outside the house. And I'm just looking at him relaxing on the couch. And I'm just like starting to like bubble. Like I'm just, and I'm like, why are we doing this? But I'm like, okay, well, if I'm really stressed and anxious, I guess we're all about to be. And I started listing out all these things that we needed to get done because we had to do them, even though we had plans that we wanted to do something family oriented. And this is where I got the idea for this podcast, because I think it's so important. Women, we don't realize the energy that we carry. We don't realize the weight sometimes we carry, and we don't realize the impact that we're carrying. We are the mood and the tone for our households all the time. And so when that burden gets a little heavy, when it's getting a little hard, I wanted to just list out 4 things that we can do together to just say, we can do this. And the first one is to just take a breath, not like, I mean, a big one, like filling up your lungs, filling up all the way to your belly and letting it go. I was listening to a podcast recently and they talked about how so many of us, we're shallow breathing. We're only breathing down and then up, down and then up. And so we're almost like regurgitating all of this air, because by the time we blow it out, we're already sucking it back in, and we're not taking that time to fully fill our lungs, to fill up through our diaphragm, to be able to do that. And I promise you, especially on your stressful times, the last thing you want to do is like take a breath. You're like, I'm going to light a match to this bitch, which again, totally valid, but you'll need a big breath to blow it all out. But it just slows things down. One of the things I'm finding for myself being a brand new mom to a baby is I can watch myself get these anxious eyes where they're just kind of like darting around and I just am about to blow over. But if I can just take a breath and say, okay, now we can go ahead and do the next step, whatever that is. I can look at that task or that annoyance or whatever it is and see, like, is this the most important thing for me to be doing? And that leads me into the next thing that I want to talk about is identifying, and we've done this before on other podcasts, but identifying what is urgent and what is important. And I know at times it's both. And I know at times what's urgent kind of takes over. Like if my baby is hungry, that is urgent and important. It does not matter. If I have any other important tasks, they are now to the side. If there are any other urgent tasks, they are now to the side. But just getting a chance to look, because I can look at the urgent category as like, okay, well, we've got all this stuff we got to do. We've got all these chores. We got to make dinner. We have to do bath. We have to do this. We have to do that. And then when I look at the important category is like, have we connected today as a family? Have I looked at my husband today? Not just like, hey, can you take him? But have I looked at him? Have I taken time to see him? Because that's one in this season that I've really struggled with, is because I'm doing the anxious eyes, and I'm not sitting there and being present and being fully aware. When it's with our kids, what meaningful moments did we create today? Because sitting, watching them watch something isn't necessarily that meaningful moment that we might be looking for. But I also know for myself, I'm like, I don't know if I got 2 hours of meaningful moments inside of me. But the ones I do have, I can be fully present, fully aware, fully engaged to say, hey, we're doing this. One of the things that I don't get to do it very often, but when I do get to do it with Cam, I just love it so much, is that we'll make dinner together. He loves these little meatballs, but we have this mini scoop that's like tiny, and he will scoop out a full pound of mini meatballs, but just the conversations we get a chance to have that we wouldn't be having if we weren't doing something together, if we weren't engaging together. The next thing I want to talk about is tasks versus outcomes. Because again, it's very much similar to that urgent to important category. And there are things we have to get done. And there are tasks that are important to me to do. Showering. Didn't realize how hard that was going to be over the last 3 months. I didn't realize how challenging I was going to find something what I thought was so simple, or like eating while my food is hot or not like soggy, just mind-boggling to me. So there are those tasks and their outcomes. But again, if you can't sort everything through urgent and important, think of what is it that I have to do, but what do I want out of this? Is this super important, urgent, right this second? What is the outcome that this is going to give me? Because a lot of the times when I look at some of the tasks and I start making a list and I'm doing the anxious eyes, is I realize my outcome that I'm going to be getting by default is more anxiety. Are there any tasks on my list or on your list today, tonight, this week, tomorrow, where the outcome is giving you more peace, is giving you joy, is giving you relaxation, is connecting you? Is there a meaningful conversation that is coming, that is going to be there? Or is it just, got to do these chores, got to do this chores, got to email that person, got to do that, have to get my kids to bed, have to do this, have to do this, have to do this. And the outcome of that is like stress, defeat, tired, anxiety. Where is it that you can give back to yourself in those moments? And I totally understand. I empathize. I get it. That time may be 5 literal minutes or 2 literal minutes, but finding what is that outcome. One of the things I'm doing right now is while I'm pumping is I'm tuning into a podcast that lifts me up of badass, encouraging women. And I'll just pick and choose. But if I'm going to have to sit there anyway, for me, if I'm sitting there and I don't have something to do, my mind will find something. And it's not always in my best interest. So where can I be filling myself up? Where is that outcome that you can get from what you have to do that's going to give you something that's going to enrich your life, make it better, make it easier, make it happier? And then the last thing I want to say is for number 4 is pray for rain. Because I assure you, I did not think of all of this stuff as I was sitting there reflecting on my anxious behavior that I was getting ready to amp my husband the F up, because I was just having this little mini meltdown inside of all the things we had to do. And we only had a couple hours. We had all these things to do. And then all of a sudden, it's frickin' pouring outside. And it was just there's something about rain that just makes you slow down, at least in your 30s when you have kids. In my 20s, it, amped me up and it was like, let's go outside. Now I'm like, cool. I need to take a moment because I'm about to ruin this whole goddamn night. I know it, and I can't even stop myself. And the rain is just pouring down, and I'm like, well, it might just be a drizzle. We'll still have to do all those things because it's going to stop soon. It did not. By the time it stopped, I was so far beyond what I was so amped about that I was able to have a relaxing, great, amazing night, until the next thing arises. But that's why we have to talk about these things. That's where we have to be in this doing it together, because it can be so easy in any season of your life to say, man, I'm alone in this. I'm the only one that thinks like this. God, I'm a loser. Or gosh, I don't get why I'm like this. Why? And then this community starts to form where it's like, oh, girl, sit down. You ain't got nothing. Let me tell you of a time when, and that's when you get that little tribe that just says like, hey, you might not have performed perfect in that moment, but you're doing your absolute best. And one of the ways that I know that we can all show up better, mostly myself, 99% of this whole podcast is what I want to tell me. So if you're getting value from that, please let me know. And if you're not, I guess sign off. But for you guys out there where you're getting the anxious eyes and things are starting to tighten and they're starting to constrict and you feel like you just can't breathe because you have all of these thankless, tall, and never-ending tasks that aren't going anywhere. Like some of them aren't going anywhere until you're dead. You have to find that place where you can find yourself in that chaos. So whether that's taking a big breath, maybe a few, minimum. Whether that's saying what's urgent, what is important. What do we have to do tonight? What can we do tomorrow? What will we do tomorrow? What can we do this weekend? Also, of all the shit I am doing, what am I getting out of this? What can I let go of? Some of it you just can't let go of. Dishes, laundry, you can't let go of them. Cam does his own laundry and he hates it. And you know what? So do I. I hate my own. But what's nice is as a family, we get to suffer together instead of being the main sufferer. Because that's kind of what I'm noticing with women is you either got a woman who's like, I'm stressed, your day is now over because you're going to be stressed, or you have someone that just bottles it up inside and someday there's going to tick, tick, pow. I like that I get to suffer with Cam. When he tells me how much it sucks, I go, I know, I really hate this too. But I'd hate it even more if I was doing it all by myself. So what are the outcomes we're getting from the things that we're doing? And when all else fails and you've done all that and you're still, pray for rain. And even if you got to make your own rain, and that's you going in the shower, to just let that wash over you, to find what is important. Because ladies, whether you realize it or not, you carry the light. But on the flip side, we also carry the dark. We carry what brings our families together. But that means we also can carry what makes people feel lonely. And the worst thing that can happen is for you to all be together on the couch in the same room and everybody feels lonely. That's the cool thing about women is we get to be everything and nothing simultaneously. We get to be the light, the good, and we get to be, like my poor mom refolding the towels. She didn't mean to bring in any dark space, but I never forgot that. I never forgot that. I was like, I'm going to help you. And she was like, it's actually, you shouldn't even tell me, hey, fold them this way. She just redid them, And so nobody's perfect. Everybody's doing their best. And I think that's the most important thing is when you've kind of worked through all four of these things and you're still just like, I'm burning it down, is everybody's doing the best they can with what they know, with the tools that they have. And even if it looks like they ain't got a toolbox for the tools, they still doing the best they can with what they have. I kind of like that if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, because I'm mama, But this week, why don't we take a look at what that means to everybody else around us? And how can we create our own happiness from within so that we have light to give? Because a candle doesn't lose any part of its flame by relighting other candles. And as women, there are a lot of wicks around us. A lot of candles that we can light. You guys, thank you so much for joining me for the Anna Alexis Podcast. Again, we're here every Tuesday at 5:00. I love getting to spend this time with you. I cannot wait for next week as we dive into more of this. And again, you've got this. We've got this. And we're going to get it done. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.